So as you know, this course is about human capital management. And human capital management, just for now, for a simple definition, is really dealing with the human side. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about human capital and what it is, where it comes from, and more deeply about it. But for right now, think about it in terms of the human side of dealing with an organization strategically. So there are four objectives that I really want to achieve in this course. One is to describe and design solutions that maximize the human capital of an organization through processes of acquiring, supporting, developing, and retaining key talent. The idea here is how can you apply these principles to be able to design solutions that are going to be effective in terms of the human element. The second objective is to relate human capital management and investment in people strategically to the operation, design, and evolution of the organization. So there's a critical alignment that's necessary, and you'll see this throughout your readings, and we'll talk a little bit about it in the videos as well. But alignment becomes really, really critical as well between what the organization needs to accomplish and then how you deal with the people to achieve those objectives. The third objective is to explain the components and subcomponents of human capital management and their implications for improving the employee experience, their overall performance, and the performance of the organization. I'll be using a model that is introduced in the book. I think it's a relatively simple model, so it'll be easier to follow. But the question is really about not only the success of the organization, but also how do you deal with the employee experience? And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then finally, to apply principles of human capital management to enhance personal leadership practice and ethics, and enhance your personal leadership persona. So what I want you to do is to be able to own this, to be able to apply it in terms of your own leadership. Leadership is a very personal thing. It's very different across people. So what's going to resonate with you may resonate differently with other people. And what I want to do is get you to see things that resonate with you that you can build into your own persona and start applying and thinking about. Now, some of that is going to take some critical thinking. So we're going to deal with critical thinking, and we're going to deal with questioning some assumptions and really diving more deeply into things so that we get to some of the values and ethics that are behind this as well, because I think that's also critical when we talk about people. Now, so let's talk about the structure. So this is a 16-week course of material that's delivered in 8 weeks. Now, what you have to recognize is because it's condensed like that doesn't mean that we're condensing the time that you need to spend in between the classes. As a matter of fact, it increases. So what we don't want to do is take 16 weeks and have the time that you spend, in those 16 weeks to germinate, to think about this, disappear. We need to actually condense or add to the time that you spend each week during those 8 weeks, so that you can get that time to think about things, let them marinate, and let them process. There's going to be a little bit more time on your part to spend time thinking about this and processing it. We're going to be using Brightspace. I will be using that for your communications. We use that in terms of announcements, the discussions that we have, the assignments that we have. So if you're not familiar with it, please familiarize yourself with Brightspace. And then the best thing to do in terms of contacting me is through email or Brightspace. If you need to talk, you want to talk about anything, if we want to talk about the course, if you have questions about something, or if you just want to talk about your career or situations at work and you want to kind of process some things, I'm more than happy to do that with you as well. And I'm going to leave it open in terms of having just set office hours. Let's find a time that works for you, because I know that people are potentially in different time zones and have different needs. So I will be flexible in terms of what your needs are. Now, we're going to be using 3 sets of materials in this course. The first one is a book called Humanizing Human Capital. We're going to look at that deeply because we want to understand how to do things more humanistically, but at the same time, we're going to question some of the things that they have in there, and we're going to challenge some things, just so you can see how slippery to some extent this concept is of humanization in the workplace. The second book that we're going to be using is called Human Capital and Global Business Strategy. This is more like a traditional textbook, which will help you to understand the basic concepts of how these all fit together systemically. And this is also the model that we're going to be using to kind of organize the course. There are elements that we're going to use from this book to organize the course. It has a lot of good material in it. I'm going to add to that in terms of videos and talking through some of these things with you, and add some more examples, maybe some challenges as well. I'll also be posting some online papers and potentially online videos in addition to the ones that I create that will supplement the materials that you'll be reading in these books. Now, how the course is being evaluated, or how your performance is being evaluated. We're going to have 4 different sets of assignments for this course. The first one I'm calling Leadership Application. What I want to do is give you 2 situations, relatively small situations. I don't want to give you massive case studies, but relatively small situations that I want you to think through in terms of what we've been talking about. And I want you to apply what you're learning to analyze what's going on, question what's going on, and then also start generating some potential solutions or potential ideas of how to address things. That's going to be 20% of your grade. So each one of those is 10%. The second thing is really our class dialogue. Now, ideally, we would be speaking together in a classroom synchronously. We're not. So we're going to have these as interactive interactions online. What I will do is post discussion topics for you. There'll be 11 of them. And what you'll do is it'll ask you some things maybe that are personal. It may be analytic, it may be synthetic, bringing things together or taking things apart, or sharing some ideas that you have. And that will be 20% of your grade as well. It's going to start with the first, with the very beginning, where I want you to share a little bit about yourself. And I want you to share some personal goals as well in terms of the class, so we can get to know each other. The third thing is research paper summaries. What I'd like you to do is to find 2 research articles that are related to the things that we're talking about. And the reason I want to do this is I want to, because this is a graduate program, I want you to become familiar not only with texts and popular works, but I also want you to see what kind of research there is. Sometimes they're very different in terms of their approaches. Sometimes they will supplement each other, and sometimes they won't. So what I'd like you to do is find 2 papers, research papers from peer-reviewed journals, and if you need some help, I can help you with that. And I'd like you to write some small analysis on it. So basically, it'll summarize the article, but then also I want you to have kind of a personal analysis and reaction to it, and sort of a critical reaction to it in terms of what you think the implications are, or what you think may be missing in this research, based on what you have learned or what you know. Then the last thing, the major thing, the summative paper, the summative meaning that the thing that we're going to use to kind of judge your whole performance, is what I'm calling a paradox paper. Now, I've already said that paradox is going to be a centerpiece of this course. And basically what I'm asking you to do is to take one of the paradoxes that we have talked about, and I want you to analyze it and think about it in terms of what we've been learning. What are some ways to deal with it? What challenges does it present to an organization? Where the pluses and minuses of the different poles of that paradox, and then how do leaders deal with those paradoxes and become successful and handle them. So those are going to be the 4, and that's worth 40%. And those are going to be the 4 assignments that I have you do. Optionally, this is not counted as your part of your grade, but I think it's important to have some kind of synchronous contact. What we can do is schedule a day and time, or 2 days and times, where the class can get together online and talk about things and share ideas, maybe share work experiences, and just basically chat, where I can be there and you can be there, and we can talk with each other. And we'll arrange that very soon. Now, how the course is structured in terms of the weeks. They're basically divided into two halves for each week to equal the 16 units. The first week is going to be the course introduction, which is what you're in right now. And then we're going to start talking about organizational paradoxes and what does it mean to be a paradox and where are these paradoxes so you can start recognizing them. Then we're going to spend some time talking about critical thinking. And critical thinking isn't just creating a new mousetrap. It's basically diving down deeply into things and questioning some assumptions. So we're going to talk about kind of why that's important and what it is. Then we're going to talk about humans and organizations and start getting into the challenges that we have in terms of human beings and organizations and what some of the things we have to think about in terms of humans or organizations. Then we're going to talk about strategic thinking and also compare it with strategic planning. A lot of organizations that I've worked in do not do strategic thinking very well. They do strategic planning very well. And there's a difference between the two. So we're going to talk about that. And then we'll introduce that model of human capital management that's from the Human Capital and Global Business Strategy book and start looking at how it represents dealing with human capital management. Then we're going to break it down into the pieces of that model. So we'll talk about culture and leadership and structure and talent management, metrics, change. And then I've added a component called employee experience and motivation. So what's important in all of this is understanding this from the employee side as well as from the leader side. A lot of times the leaders do not think about employees, do not empathize with employees, and then they run into some trouble. So what we want to do is start thinking about employees more deeply and their role in this and how we have to engage them as part of this process to really be successful. I've built in time for you to work on your paper at the end, and then we'll do a wrap up. And the wrap up, what I like to do is get appreciation from people in terms of something that they've learned or something that's changed them or some ideas that they've had. So that is the course plan.